replace 18.
Lowish, ash
Yeah.
removal, ash treatment,
And this
okay,
medium.
basically 18.
Yeah. So they're suggesting that the higher levels of service would remove more trees.
Mm-hmm.
It could also treat more trees in the interim. Again,
Doesn't it accomplish it quicker if I would somewhere, don't they discuss out farther? If you do the low, the costs aren't gonna go away, they just stretch it
right,
out.
they just stretch out.
What are these three columns, the 20, 20,
Management ash replacement program.
is that current? No.
Yes, so this is our current infrastructure-related ash replacement program, so that
Oh,
policy
okay.
basically says,
I see, okay.
whenever you remove a curb,
Okay.
you look at.
And so this would be, so right now we're doing 28 with
This
our
is-
regular
yeah,
road program,
an
but
example.
and 18
So
on top
so
of that.
this would be just ash trees that are, require replacement
Mhm.
for
Yeah,
your regular reasons, I
Yeah.
guess. This is an average, and we're already seeing that going up. It's here.
The ash removals?
Well, yeah, so this is an average, this 18 is an average.
yeah,
We will be significantly higher than
Way
18
up, yeah.
this year, and then if that is just going to increase until there aren't any left.
well, we did a lot on Wilson, right? We took out a bunch.
We did take out a bunch.
We replaced like 146.
We planted that many trees. We did not replace that many trees.
That's right.
I should have looked, but my memory is somewhere in the 40-some range of trees, existing trees that we replaced. The remainder were additions. Like on the, so the current infrastructure, the current ash tree replacement program limits the trees, unless they're dying due to disease, defect, or damage, to ash trees that meet certain conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So under that program, any of the European, or they're sometimes called Hesse ash, get replaced. They don't thrive here, they tend to struggle. For the whites and the greens, there are condition ratings that we replace or not replace.
Mm-hmm.
I would suggest that we revisit that program and see if we want to review those condition ratings. Perhaps we go from, and I'm just, I'm
Right.
just saying this for the sake of discussion, but typically there's fair, poor, good, and there's excellent, but we typically don't rate anything excellent. And right now it's fair. If it's fair, we place the certain, and there's certain size thresholds.
Yeah, I remember that 17
Yeah.
or 19.
So, so on Wilson, there were maybe a dozen or more ash trees that are still there that we didn't replace because they were of a certain size and in a certain condition.
Okay.
So we've now committed the village essentially to continuing to treat those trees. So there's a biannual cost to keep those trees in the ground. And when we originally wrote the Emerald Ash Borer plan, we recognized that treatment wasn't something that we were recommending or intending to do till the end of time. It was to get us through that bubble, to be able to replace trees on our schedule, not Mother Nature's.
How many ash trees do we have? Like what percentage of our canopy is ash tree? And how, I'm just trying to get a sense of like how big of a problem this is.
So
1,442 ash trees. Yeah.
20 about
20. And so when we wrote the plan, we had about 1,800.
So we're 22%.
So we're not. So we reduced that through the, the items that we've done, which is primarily the ash tree replacement related to infrastructure.
Right.
We reduced that by 6%.
Yeah.
I have one question. I thought I read in the packet prior to this time, but that there was still a reason to inject certain trees. They recommended like certain types of oak, or I'm sorry, not oak, but ash. That actually they recommended taking them all out, you know, like, right. But then there was, at some point, they talked about injections and that, certain, I don't know if it was the diameter, I can't remember now, it's been a few weeks.
Yeah, you know, I think there's a couple considerations there. You know, certainly when we have these very large specimens, nobody willingly wants to take a tree of that size down.
Right.
And that's why we've always geared our things toward treating the largest trees.
I totally agree.
So, you know, from an aesthetic standpoint, that's a big consideration. It's always a stormwater consideration. The trees hold and capture a lot of water. So specifically in the combined sewer area, mass removals of large trees would have an impact on water in the system. So, you know, it takes a lot more administration, but you could be very strategic of going on a block by block basis and saying, well, you know, we wanna keep the biggest trees, or, it's really just all about setting, you know, setting the criteria, how you wanna do it.
I agree with that 100%. I just felt that there was something in there that said, you know, they made a recommendation on what to keep, and then what ash trees were specifically not good. Isn't there different types?
The European ash, we don't have very many of those. I forget, maybe 100 or certainly under 2. This is the edge of their hardiness zone. And in the spring, when you look at them, they look fine. If you drive by them in July or August, when things start to dry out a little, they look terrible.
So my two, and then I have no more questions. One of them is it strategic to target that species? You know, like the worst species first, rather than, this is just an idea to think about. And then, oh geez, I forgot what I was gonna say, but it's important. It'll come back to me.
Okay. I mean, certainly that's always really been my, you know, so we do a hazard tree assessment every year. The foresters, you know, and what they're really looking for is disease, defect, damage, decline. And we have consistently said, whenever you see a European or a Hesse ash, if you're unsure, it's time to go. So we kind of do that already.
But using any ash, I'm just wondering
Yeah.
if it makes sense, not for today to decide, but just to think about, for the future as we discuss it more. But if, I just remember in the report, there's like one type of ash.
It's that.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
the
and is
European.
would it be, that could be a strategic way that we go about eliminating ash trees rather than by block, just saying it's by type?
We could, and that would give us a start. That would probably get us, you know, if we went on a full-scale ash replacement program, that would probably get us through year 1, maybe a little bit into year 2.
Yep.
But I mean, I think essentially what the plan is saying is that we should really be ramping up how many we're taking out and
We
replacing,
should
but
be
you're saying
increasing
too
that
that
number.
we may not have the small trees to put in.
Well, we will. They're out there. I think we may not get the diversity or the variety that we would ideally want.
Right now, we have a list of 20 tree species that we
Right.
pre-approved that we plant.
Right.
Because we
So-
know that they will survive the climate, the conditions.
Well, 20 seems like a lot.
Yeah, that's our list now. I'm
Yeah.
trying to, make sure the nurseries.
So
Supply
if we're
that.
ordering 200 trees, ideally you'd want to spread, you'd want those percentages to be relatively consistent across the 20. They can't always do that, so maybe instead of getting 10 of one particular species, they can only give us 8 that year, and then you're down to 12 pull something out. So
Right.
Oh,
it's,
they don't have the stock, is that what you're saying? So say we did it by type, you're saying that that couldn't be a possibility because they wouldn't have,
that varies a bit from year to year. And we have, in the past, we consistently worked with 2 different nurseries. We've broadened that to pull in others. We had typically used nurseries up north, with the thought that different, a lower hardiness zone would give us better chances of survival here. And there's some merit to that, but I think we have to, we've just kind of broadened. So now we're getting them from across the state instead of just the very northern part of the state, in an effort to try to get as much species variety as we can.
thank you.
So Milwaukee County Parks has target, like they'll only put in certain percentage of range
Yep,
to keep the balance.
yep.
So as I walk down streets, I'm seeing ashes, they're starting to shed their,
Oh, yeah.
do we have some idea some of them have to come out,
Yeah,
and it's accelerating rapidly.
yeah, yes. So that is going to be, that's gonna be the hard issue, because, I know, resources are finite.
Right,
But this particular issue is going to require more resources, or resources allocated differently than we have been in the past, in order to keep up with that decline.
One thing I'll say that I hear from the public is they just get upset when the tree gets, a big tree gets, so, but I think if a tree is in bad shape, when it, from a PR perspective, to let it get to bad shape, where it's basically dead, then we don't get so much, complaining about
That's absolutely true.
taking it down.
Kind of works that way with streets.
so do they go all up
But it also-
though? I'm just thinking
Well,
like Frederick, you got
yeah.
this beautiful ashes, the whole
That's what I'm saying, take
street
a
is.
species.
But if you started now replacing
I
Yeah.
think,
select
I think we
ones.
do have to look at sub-areas, if there's
Right,
sub-areas that are
That's-
entirely, we really,
That
we
would
have
be-
a map, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that the
Yeah.
inventory? We have
Yeah.
a map.
Good.
But also recall that we have been treating the largest.
Yeah,
And that's not only for aesthetic reasons, it's exponentially more expensive to remove a large tree than it is to remove a small tree. And so the thought, even behind the EAV plan in 2009, was that if we're not treating the smaller trees, those are easy to take out and much less expensive to take out. So let's treat the larger trees
Yeah.
and let us kind of remove those on a much slower scale. But the smaller ones, we can do more efficiently and less expensively, so we could do many more of those in any given year.
And you also retain your environmental benefits of the large trees
Right.
on the asphalt.
Right. So,
But now we're having to take out the large trees.
well, we're not seeing too many of the large ones. The ones that we have treated, it's not 100%, it's not perfect, but by and large, the ones that we have been treated are not exhibiting any signs of infestation. It's the untreated trees. So the ones that were smaller than that 18-inch threshold that we had never treated are,
Yeah, treatments are like 99% effective, it's just a long-term, slower process.
and there really haven't been any studies done on the long-term ability to treat. So we don't know
I see what
if
you're
you
saying.
can do that.
Forever.
Yeah, because basically you're drilling a series of holes in a tree every time you inject it. Everybody knows it's not good for the tree, right?
Every 2 years, right?
Every 3 years, so you're doing that, so how many years can you do that?
I do remember we were 3 and
Yeah,
that's
we
when
talked
it's 2.
about that.
Unproven at this point, but.
I need a little more specifics about, where are these trees, how big are they? If we have areas of a lot of ash, like Mike was pointing out, and what are we really talking about, and how's it gonna appear to the public? That's kind of what I'm still sort of confused about.
And I would like to know, according to that report, we don't have staff capability for a ramped up program any more than probably what we're doing now. Now, maybe a little bit, but they did recommend contracting out. So my question is, have we spoken to like the city of Milwaukee to see if we could, if they self-do it, or if they have a contract? And so anyways, I would like to explore
Yeah.
that if we haven't.
We, they do their own work
Right.
typically, yes.
And what is their capacity? I mean, I just feel like there's so many different operations that if, I mean, it's removing an ash tree and putting in another tree. I'm just wondering if there's a cheaper way, by partnering with the city of Milwaukee to do some of the things that we do.
I think probably they'll tell you that they have more trees than staff capacity too. They just have a larger staff, so they have a little bit better ability to handle it, but we can certainly ask
Or
that
they might even
question.
have a contractor, you know,
Oh, I mean, we have contractors that do work for us too, but yes, I can certainly ask.
you know what I'm saying, like on that contract, would it be cheaper or whatever? If you
yeah.
combine contractor. Okay, thank you.
Mm.
I think, so we'll have some very interesting things to report after this year. You recall we changed up a lot of our forestry operations
Right,
going to
yeah,
Bay
right.
Route. So that does give us a much better capacity to replant a larger percentage of trees than we have been. But it's not going to get us here. I mean, that's still beyond the capability of 3 foresters.
When you complete the condition survey, is there a trend that they're seeing in the quality of the ashes, or
Yes.
how many they anticipate they'll
Mhm.
need to take out?
Yeah.
They want us to go as fast as possible, according to the report,
What about
because,
at Hubbard Park and other parks?
because we're infected recent, right? It's spread.
It's better.